August 16th, 1989. A rural road north of Toronto. A woman is walking. She's alone. She's exhausted. And she only has one arm. Where her right arm used to be, there's a stump. Recent, wrapped, she keeps her eyes on the horizon, watching for a car, any car, because she knows something most people never have to know. She used to be a nurse, so she understands, with terrible precision, exactly what an untreated amputation does to a body. She knows how long she has. She knows what the numbers mean. So she puts out her thumb. A stranger stops, and she climbs in. How does a person end up here? Not a soldier, not a car crash victim. An ordinary woman, someone who once had a career, a family, a future, walking down a Canadian highway, holding the place where her arm should be. To understand that, you have to go back. Back to a mountainside in Quebec. Back to a man who called himself Moses. This is the story of the Ant Hill Kids, and I promise you, by the end, you'll understand how she got on that road. Stay with me. Roch Thériault was born on May 16, 1947, in the Saguenay region of Quebec, one of 7 children, raised in a devout Catholic family. He didn't do well in the ordinary world. He dropped out of school young, but he taught himself obsessively from the Old Testament, not the gentle parts. He was drawn to divine wrath, to the apocalypse, to a God of punishment. He also drank heavily, and he had a violent temper. Remember that. In the 1970s, Thériault joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And here's the strange part at first. They loved him. He followed their health rules to the letter. No alcohol, no tobacco, no junk food. He threw himself into organizing seminars. But something curdled. He began persuading followers to quit their jobs, to abandon their families, to follow him. In April 1978, the church removed him. It didn't matter. He'd already found his real ambition. Because in 1977, Roch Thériault had declared himself a prophet. He took a new name, Moses, and he founded a commune. He called his followers the Ant Hill Kids. Why? Because they worked as hard as ants. They made maple syrup, bread, preserves, smoked fish, baked goods. I want you to hold on to that image. Because at the start, it wasn't a house of horrors. It was idyllic. Hard-working people, building something in the wilderness, led by a man who told them they were special. That's how it always begins. Thériault gave his followers a date. The world, he said, would end in February 1979. So in 1978, the group climbed to a mountainside commune near the Gasp village of St. Jogues. They called it Eternal Mountain, and they waited for the end of everything. That November, on the other side of the world, Jonestown happened. Over 900 people dead in a jungle in Guyana at the command of another self-styled prophet. The press noticed the echo. They drew comparisons to Thériault. They had no idea how far it would go. Then February 1979 arrived, and the world didn't end. Now think about what that should mean. The prophecy failed. The date came and went. The sky was still there. Any reasonable person would walk down that mountain and never look back. But that's not what happened. Thériault simply explained it away. There was a difference, he said, between human time and God's time. The apocalypse was still coming. They just misread the clock. And they believed him. That's the moment that tells you everything. Because when a prophecy fails, and the followers stay anyway, that's not faith anymore. That's control. Total, unbreakable control. And a man with that kind of control has nothing left to restrain him. The idyllic commune was about to become something else. The rules tightened like a noose. Thériault took all the female members as his wives. Over the years, he would father 26 children within the commune. He forbade members from speaking to one another without his permission. He isolated them from the outside world and from each other. And then came the punishments. Here's what made it so effective and so insidious. Thériault would stage arguments, out loud. with God. He'd cry out, "God, don't make me do this," as though the cruelty pained him, as though he were merely the reluctant instrument of a higher will. It wasn't him hurting you, it was heaven. The violence escalated by degrees. Beatings, then loyalty tests designed to prove devotion through suffering. Members were made to harm themselves and to harm each other on command. Because if you do something unthinkable to prove your loyalty, you were bound to him by your own guilt. I'm going to spare you the exhaustive catalog. Some of it involved children, and I'll only say that no one in that commune was safe, not the adults, and not the kids. It was as bad as you're imagining, and I'll leave it there. Thériault also appointed himself the group's healer, its surgeon. He operated on conscious people using kitchen tools, no training, no anesthesia. The word cult almost feels too small for what this had become. But the horror was only beginning to surface, because up to now, it had all stayed hidden on that mountain. That was about to change, and it would cost lives. In 1981, an infant named Samuel Giguère died. Around the same time, a follower named Guy Veer fled the commune and went to the police. It led to a raid. Children were removed and placed in foster care. Arrests followed. But it didn't end it. Thériault held on, and the worst was still to come. 1988, a woman named Solange Boilard complained of stomach pain. What Thériault did to her, in the name of healing, killed her. He assaulted her, then subjected her to a horrific mock operation using those same crude tools, with a follower forced to assist. She died. And even in death, he wouldn't release his delusion he had followers desecrate her body in a grotesque attempt to resurrect her. Nothing came of it. She was gone. And then there's Gabrielle Laval. Gabrielle had been a nurse. In the commune, she suffered almost beyond description. As punishment for something as trivial as low pastry sales, Thériault had 8 of her teeth pulled out with pliers. She endured a needle broken off in her spine. Burns, she escaped once. And then she went back. If you've never understood how someone could do that, understand this, that's what a decade of psychological control does. The cage isn't always made of bars. But Thériault wasn't finished with her. He drove a knife through her hand, pinning it to a table, and then he amputated her arm. And that is how she ended up on the road. August 16th, 1989, one arm. A former nurse, counting the minutes. She hitchhiked to a hospital north of Toronto, and this time she didn't stay silent. She told the police everything. Here's the detail that should make your blood run cold. For years, the authorities couldn't legally investigate the adults in the commune. Why? Because it was registered as a church. The paperwork protected him. It was Gabrielle Laval's testimony that finally broke the case open. What no raid, no death, no missing child had managed to do one survivor's words did. Thériault was initially sentenced to 12 years. Then, in 1993, he was convicted of the second-degree murder of Solange Boilard and sentenced to life. And even life in prison didn't fully end his grip. He fathered 4 more children during conjugal visits. 3 of his wives moved to New Brunswick to stay near the penitentiary, to stay near him. On February 26, 2011, it ended. His cellmate, Matthew MacDonald, stabbed him to death. He handed a guard the bloody knife and said the man was down on the range. Roch Thériault was 63. But this story doesn't end with him. It shouldn't, because Gabrielle Laval survived. She lived. She became an advocate for cult survivors, and she wrote a memoir turning the worst thing a human being can endure into a warning for others. So how does an ordinary person end up on that road? Not all at once. It's a hard-working commune first. A charismatic man who makes you feel chosen. A prophecy, and when it fails, an explanation. One rule, then another. One test of loyalty, then a worse one. By the time you see the cage, the door's been locked for years. That's the real lesson here. It isn't monsters that build these places. It's charisma, and faith turned into a weapon, and the terrible patience of a man who understood exactly how to bend belief until it breaks a person in half. Gabrielle Laval refused to break, and that's why we know her name.